So of course, when people travel, they bring their traditions with them, including clothing, foods, hairstyles, family organizations, and celebrations. One of the earliest mentions of Chinatown comes from 1874, and this is the Chinatown that was located here in Eureka. And that newspaper story was talking about a really large New Year's celebration that the Chinese community was holding, and that includes a lot of firecrackers. There are special flowers that people bring around and hand out to different folks. So they brought those, they brought religious traditions and all kinds of different things. And the traditions that the Chinese brought looked very, very different from what a lot of local people were used to seeing. And it made it really easy for the Chinese people to be targeted for violence. So here's a case that kind of shows a couple of items that people might have brought with them as they were traveling to the US, and things that might have been imported from China for people who already lived here in the US. So a couple things. We got this bottle here. So this is an interesting one. It was purchased in Weaverville, which had a really big Chinese population. And they have an excellent museum out there. There's a Trinity County Historical Society that has some displays on the Chinese population, and then there's the oh man, why is the name slipping me? It'll come to me. But it's a state historic park that is operated out there, and it's a Chinese temple. It's really beautiful, and the tours there are awesome. I highly recommend them. So here's a little religious figurine. I think, if I'm remembering right, this is a figurine of Manjushri. He's got a sword to cut through ignorance, which is really kind of fun to think about. And this is a paper that came with it. I'm not really sure what it says. This is another paper. But this came with the figurine. And then we have this little mini tapestry kind of thing, along with some Chinese coins. Now, these Chinese coins aren't actually attached to this tapestry. That's just kind of how we displayed them. But they're from a bunch of different people. Some are from Cecile, some are from other community members. And let me see if I can try and get a little bit of a better view on this. And so the images on this tapestry come from a story, and I'm not very familiar with it, but it has a bunch of symbols for good luck and wealth and prosperity on it. You can even kind of see what kind of looks like a swastika there. That's actually a positive symbol in this context. It's for luck, I believe. And here's some other figurines. This one's got a lot of soot on it, so I'm assuming that it probably sat on an altar somewhere where there was a lot of incense burning going on. Here's another one. This is an interesting one. It's got that halo around it. I'm not sure who this is supposed to be, unfortunately, but we got some bottles. So this little red bottle here came with this paper in this box. And we're not really sure what was supposed to be in it. It might have been a medicine. I'm not really sure. And we have some dishes and some combs. And one of the other traditions that Chinese folks brought with them when they came here was the usage of opium. And this was a really controversial thing for a lot of people in the US, which partially had to do with the frequency of usage. So opium was really expensive in China, and so it wasn't a, I guess, pastime that people took in super frequently. But being a, intoxicating drug, people there were a lot of local white folks that kind of took it as, they're using this intoxicating drug, they're gonna come after our women, they're gonna be all drugged out all the time and not be effective. And there were a lot of stereotypes that came around the usage of opium and Chinese people. So these are some of the opium tools and kind of accessories that we had in the collection. I was surprised we had so many. This is almost a complete setup with the pipe and all the different little tools and a tray that all these tools would sit on. Here's some other pipes. And some of these were for opium, but some of them were also used for tobacco. And that was something that a lot of white folks didn't really realize, that these weren't only opium. You could smoke other things in these. So opium was banned for commercial sale in the U.S. in 1909, partially because there were missionaries in the Philippines, which was under the rule of the United States at the time. Missionaries were concerned about the trade of opium in the Philippines to people that the missionaries were trying to convert. And by the turn of the century, there were a lot of people that thought opium usage was only for the Chinese. But prior to that, opium was widely prescribed to women for different women problems, cramps, all kinds of different things. And it showed up in a lot of different medicines. It wasn't only a Chinese thing. And it was also used for headaches and all kinds of different things. But then by the turn of the century, most people were saying, opium usage is the Chinese and it's bad and we need to ban it. We need to ban the Chinese. We need to just, the whole thing. So, and there were lots of news stories that came out too that were talking about, if you go near these Chinese opium dens, you're gonna be tempted to go inside. You're gonna become addicted. You're gonna become a prostitute, and then you're gonna die. And there were stories of women, becoming incapacitated in these opium dens, and the Chinese, and it was a very widespread stereotype, and a very harmful one. And the laws against possession and smoking of opium were passed very easily due to these fear-mongering stories and the assumptions of how opium was being used by the Chinese and how they fit into existing prejudices against Chinese people. So that gives you kind of a little bit of an idea, a little bit of a peek into some of the traditions that Chinese folks brought with them. And we're going to take a look at some other parts of the exhibit next.